We live in weird times.
I have no idea how we ended up at this point. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. Like this year we were supposed to have the Olympics, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
were also supposed to have the football Euro championship, like Europe international thing. They have like a cup, a continental thing. Uh so it was supposed to be this year,
Hmm.
and it's been postponed to next year, just like the Olympics as well.
Yeah.
And they did continue. So like some the leagues are still playing, or
Hmm.
rather they just finished, and
Okay.
the Champions League still happened, which was really weird. And I actually watched like the last couple games. They were slightly exciting. Especially there was a game between Barcelona and Munich where Munich beat Barcelona 8 goals to 2. Yeah, it was. The score resembled a cricket match score almost. But yeah, so like it's been so weird to watch football as well
Mhm.
because the stands are empty.
Yeah.
Uh, the ads are still playing. Like it's like it's like an empty, I don't know, a department store with like TVs all around. Like there's ads, there's
Hmm.
screens everywhere, but nobody's really looking at them.
Yeah.
And people like international high level athletes are playing football. Like this is like really high level football, but at the same time, there's like it's empty. It feels like a practice game, sort of. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
nobody cares so much. It's really weird.
Are they having the matches live?
Yes, they are. They are.
Okay.
I guess soon enough we could just move into a VR thing where everyone stays home and just plays like FIFA from their house. But at the moment, we still have live games and live
Yeah.
telecast. I mean, telecast earns huge money for like broadcasting channels, so
Right.
I don't see any reason they would cancel those.
Mm-hmm. It seems just very weird because it's like especially for the players, I imagine it would be quite weird to be, like playing a game, like a game that really matters, but there's like nobody in the stands, nobody cheering you on. I hope they at least have like speakers that are, that have like recorded like audience noise just playing so that they have some motivation.
I did notice that like some channels or some games they did have like overlaid audio from audience, like crowd track, and they did it quite well actually. They had like the oohs and ahs at the right moments. But the other thing is like many other games had nothing. It's just pure silence, so you can hear like
Crickets.
and incidentally in the final, like so you have the substitute players and like the staff, like the medical staff and the coaching staff. They're in the stands, and like
Hmm.
they're allowed to be there. So you had the non-playing members. They were doing all the chants, all the clapping, like rhythms and everything. But it sounds exactly like it was like 20 people like in a stadium of thousands.
It's like you're playing a game with your friends and your mother is standing on the sidelines cheering you on.
No, not really. More like you're playing in your society, and like some friends are cheering from the balcony, the
Mm.
ones who can't come down because they have to do homework or something.
Interesting, man. We live in weird times.
I think that was true before this year, but go on. Elaborate, please.
No, with everything, I imagine, like, this is just live games, like sports, and I'm not a big sports watcher. Like, I don't think I ever watched sports that much. But I can totally imagine, like, a football match happening and them just, I don't know, the atmosphere is very different. Like, incidentally, I have been to some stadiums for, like, live matches, mostly cricket.
Yeah.
Because my cousins are really into cricket and we used to go for quite a few matches. And like, even though I'm not that passionate about any sports or like watching any sports, but I really liked the atmosphere because you get to see, like so many people who are so passionate about something, and there's just like a whole vibe that you have.
Yeah.
And the first thing I remember is as you walk into the stands, this was like a night match that we watched in Mumbai, and I remember the lights being so bright. It felt very, very bright, and it was crazy. It felt almost like a UFO's landed on top, and just like this huge lights blaring down. But yeah, it's interesting to see this.
So, I mean, what I think, if we sort of move away from the structure of having like public events, especially public sports events,
Yeah.
or just less dense events, like where you have a crowd but it's like sparse and social distance or whatever.
Right.
If we do have this kind of I don't know, structure going forward in the next few years, I think one of the things that I will miss the most, again, like, I don't really watch a lot of sports, but one of the things I will miss the most is seeing the wave go around the stands,
Yeah.
because that is one of the best things. And I mean, any game like cricket, football, wherever you have like a huge crowd, there's usually people like organizing a wave around the stadium, and it looks so cool.
Yeah.
Also, having been part of it, it's really nice to do. And I feel like, I mean, as a species, we're gonna miss out on that thing.
Yeah.
Although it is a fairly reasonable cost to pay, but it'll still be something. It'll be just on YouTube. You show kids like, oh hey, back in the day we did this.
Yeah. I think because, like, again, those sports have like this extremely contagious excitement. Like, you get completely caught up in it. I can totally imagine something similar for like concerts, because like, I think you sent me a link for an online concert that is going to happen, or did I miss it?
It's the Fuji Rock Festival, but let me just check when it is.
Okay, so like you remember like when we were in Bangalore for the concert and stuff, like that excitement is extremely, like, it's very difficult to explain, but it's very, very different from, even if it was like a live event that was broadcast and you were watching it live. It's very different to be watching it live and watching it along with like thousands of people or hundreds of people, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's still possible in some ways. Like, did you watch the Dave Chappelle stand-up? He did a recent show. It's called 846, and he basically did like a stand-up show, like a special,
Okay.
in like an open field that they had, and they had like a lot of arrangements made. So they had like sofas, or I think there were picnic blankets or sofas, and there were like chalk circles drawn around it. So, and they were like spaced apart quite a lot, and everyone had to wear masks and everything.
I see.
And it was like quite well organized, and I think that was one of the first like shows that were done during this pandemic, and it seemed quite interesting to see that actually happen. Like, yeah, we don't have to completely stop all of this, but it was quite nice, and you could see the laughter, though that was more of a more serious show, because it was about sort of the current political situation in America, the demilitarized police movement, the Black Lives Matter and everything. But like, yeah, I can still see some semblance of the past still happening.
Yeah.
It is a different time, so...
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think there was also a concert in the UK where they had socially distant sort of seating arrangements for people. It was essentially like balconies created where they had people sit in like these cubicles with seats and tables and everything for a concert. But that diminishes the experience, like you said.
Yeah.
And part of it is sort of, the discomfort of the thing actually makes it enjoyable in retrospect.
Yeah.
The hours you spent in the lines, the in general sort of cramped environment,
Yeah, the dehydration.
the dehydration that plays a big role. Music enjoyment cannot be had without dehydration. I guess I'm just sort of grateful that we got to do it,
Yeah.
and I hope that one day we might resume such practices. But the funny thing is about that UK concert, apparently after the concert there was an after party where everyone just hung out like
My God.
as regular parties. Yeah, so slightly defeats the purpose there. Anyhow, moving on. Today we don't stop at a topic. We just stick and move.
Before you called me, I was actually on a call with a friend of mine, and we were discussing painting and art and stuff like that. And she is one of our very early listeners of the podcast, like from the very first episode. So we got a listener suggestion for a topic. So we were basically discussing using like just the amount of wastage that is created every day, of how there are shampoo bottles that you use, like a shampoo bottle lasts you for whatever 15-20 days, a month or so, and then it goes into the trash forever.
Sure.
So like she was thinking of how you can use it for something else, so maybe making it into art, painting it and selling it off or whatever it is. So recently I was looking into how to reduce wastage, because like whenever I go out and get groceries or whatever, everything is packed in plastic. Everything that you buy ever is in plastic, even if it is not the like really trashy kind of plastic, even if it is something like a pen that I will use for like months and months on end. It is still plastic, like when it could be metal or something else.
Okay.
So I was wondering about, like, what do you think about the amount of recycling that needs to be done, and do you see any sort of changes that we can make to help that?
Recycling, I feel like it's a difficult thing to address because right now, like, I mean, it all depends basically on the type of plastic it is,
Yeah.
whether you can recycle it or not. And as far as whatever I understand, it's that recyclable plastic isn't used as much. And what we end up having is cheap plastic that is not recyclable, and as a result, it ends up becoming trash.
Yeah.
What I was actually thinking about was, especially when you talked about the shampoo bottles, what I was thinking was that what if this becomes some sort of like a one-time cost thing?
Yeah.
Where even if you do buy a shampoo bottle, it's a pretty standard size. To be honest, I think it's pretty decent. Like, in terms of using, it's enough that you don't have to refill too often, but you can refill in every few months. And so what I was thinking was like, what if you create supermarkets where you can actually refill stuff rather than buy a new bottle? So what you have are giant tanks of, say, shampoo, and you just go there, like McDonald's soda machines. So you just, pick whichever shampoo you want based on the weight. You just pay however much shampoo you got, and you refill as much as you need. And that can be applied like for almost every liquid, say from cooking oil to dish soap, for even stuff like car coolant, engine coolant, sanitizer, of course, sanitizer. I mean, I guess right now a lot of people do sort of have this refill model where they carry small bottles with them, but they have like a big store at home. So I feel like that would be a really smart model to go to, where you won't have to change so much on the user side. You would have to change a little bit on the supermarkets, like, the shelf structure and stuff like that. But in terms of recycling, I feel like it's really hard to convince people to recycle. It might be easier to sort of either have governments enforce that. I think that would be a much better way of just having like creating policy where they enforce it through the companies themselves. So
Hmm.
the manufacturing process, the materials involved have to be, recyclable.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not too optimistic on convincing people.
Okay.
It's really easy to use a use and throw model, and now people have gotten adapted to it.
You've basically explained the stuff that I was coming on to, because I was actually reading some news stories, and
Hmm.
there was actually like a story that MSNBC had done. I saw it on YouTube, I think,
Okay.
where they were talking about recycling and how most of the recycling like all the stuff that even goes into the recycle bin
Hmm.
ends up just in dumps, because recently what has happened is I think China and some countries have basically, so all of the stuff was very difficult to or expensive to recycle in the US or like Western countries.
Okay.
So they were basically shipping it all to developing countries, and there it would get recycled. But I don't know, for like the last year or so, they have stopped taking all the garbage. So all of the stuff is just lying in dumps all across the world.
Okay.
So that is part one. Part two is the refill model that you mentioned. I do agree with that model, and I think that is sort of like a good middle ground to have. And I think there's a company in San Francisco or New York, like one of the big sort of hip cities, that is actually trying out a model where they have this kind of a thing where they give you, like, the first time you get like a subscription or something, you get like these big glass jars of stuff.
Hmm.
And then every time you go, you just leave those jars outside your door, and they pick it up and refill it and bring it back and stuff.
Okay.
But what happens is essentially that all of these kinds of things end up being sort of more inconvenient. And what happens is a lot of times we tend to we want the instant convenience rather than sort of long-term effects. Like if you remember, like even in McDonald's, like they used to have the big ketchup dispenser things where you go and get as much ketchup as you want.
Right.
But in recent years, I don't think I've seen that ever. You just go up to the counter and they give you the plastic packed sachets of ketchup these days.
Yep.
So it's becoming, again, like everyone just wants convenience rather than looking at the long-term stuff.
Yes, I mean, of course, I think you can easily say that, like even right now, we're still focusing a lot on convenience, and comfort. I guess this applies in almost every aspect of life, that right now, like everything is sort of, we've built a world around making certain things more convenient in life,
Yeah.
comfortable in life.
Mm-hmm.
But you have, I guess you can't really get around sort of sacrificing comfort
Yeah.
if you want to have these huge changes. Say you want to have like a highly efficient model where your reusability and recyclability is much higher,
Correct.
and that will be uncomfortable, and that will be, I guess that discomfort will also create challenges in installing this system. And although, like, I mean, although I'm not really a huge fan of Elon Musk, like the way he talked about electric cars made a lot of sense. That back in the day, electric cars were inconvenient, and the way to make them convenient for Tesla was to turn them into like a fashion statement almost.
Right.
And once it became a symbol for something, now when you have more electric cars, now you suddenly start seeing infrastructure where you start seeing the supercharger network. And you know the change, it works in a very counterintuitive way.
Yeah.
So I think especially about these things is like, either collectively we all have to agree to give up certain comfort, which I guess right now we are learning how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's some hope there for
Yeah.
sure. We
Yeah.
are sort of on that path to giving up certain comforts for other necessary accesses. Or otherwise, we need to have a model which makes it attractive to have this system.
Right.
Either of those two.
Yeah. And I was actually, so this can be like one of those recommendations. I think I talked to you earlier about this. There's this podcast called You're Wrong About.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good because what they tried to do, or they started out doing, is sort of debunking things that you basically misremember from the past. And what has happened is, because it's very America centric, but there are some really big sort of, like, this was a long time ago, I think in the 90s or something, near Alaska, where there was like a big oil spill, and Exxon Valdez oil spill. And it was like a big thing, and it still has repercussions today because it sort of set up the legal precedents so for future disasters like that and stuff. So they did an episode on acid rain, I think, which was quite good, where they talked about for like a decade there was a huge focus on acid rain. I remember there being a decade where there was a focus on the ozone layer and the ozone hole.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like there are these smaller parts that people get attracted to. So they talked about acid rain and how there were sort of incentives that were set in place by the governments, as you spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up making it sort of mandatory to have certain things. And it turned out that the technology was ready. They just weren't using it because it was slightly more expensive or slightly more inconvenient.
Yeah.
But once you sort of make it mandatory, or you basically give them incentive, it helps everybody in the long run. And one of the things that they suggested, one of the suggestions was the cap and trade model, which I did not know of before this.
Okay.
So that was like a really cool model, because we've talked about the carbon tax and the Green New Deal and a bunch of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the cap and trade basically allows you to have like a carbon tax, but you have a ceiling. So say you can hit 100 points of pollution that is allowed by the government.
Okay.
And if you end up optimizing, because again, according to capitalism, you're supposed to optimize, and competition makes things better and whatnot. So if you end up being really efficient and you use only 80% of that, you have the 20% on top, which you can sell to other companies which need that higher cap.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically trade that thing.
I see. Okay.
So you're basically incentivizing them to make it better, because they earn money when they are doing this. So it seemed like a nice idea, and every year you bring down the cap by a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that works on two major points of the trade itself,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that you bring it down every few years or whatever.
Hmm.
Because I mean, I can easily see like things just continuing as they are right now. And also, like, okay, I don't want to get too into it, so I'll save my questions for later.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. And I guess you're incentivizing like greener methods.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really find myself very optimistic when it comes to the whole climate change thing.
Same.
It's been a long time since I guess I found out about it, and I don't really feel like we've had significant progress.
Hmm.
If anything, we are actually doing much worse than before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm not very optimistic on it. Like, yeah, sure, we have models, we have, people coming up with theories of how things might work. But okay, on going back to what you were saying, do you have ideas about the art that you were talking about that you could create out of like trashable items?
Mm-hmm. So again, like again, I'm not like a big artist, so I'm not very good. Like, I'm trying recently, so I have been getting into watercolors this past month or so, and
Yeah.
it's been fun. It's been interesting to try out new
Mhm.
mediums. But my only issue is that even if you sort of make something into art, even if you make trash into art, you are only sort of covering the sort of, it's like there's like holes being poked into your wall and you're just plugging them up and painting on top of it rather than actually solving the main issue. So you don't end up actually solving the recycling problem or the trash problem. You end up just masking it, or even if you end up monetizing it, making it into these intricate, beautiful works of art and selling them or donating them or doing whatever you want with it, or just decorating your room with it, you're only sort of masking your problems. You're not really solving the main issue, where the actual solution might be something like having a refillable shampoo bottle or whatever. So, or having something that's homemade maybe.
True.
So I don't know. I don't really see, again, I'm very pessimistic about this, but I don't really see like a solution for that.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. The only thing is, at least what I have experienced is that if you do make something, if you do sort of repurpose it, for however short an amount of time, it does have some value for at least yourself, maybe some others around you. And to be honest, that counts for something. Like what I started doing was, I started drawing on the, so I started like making small marker doodles basically on the back of receipts that I have. So for me, again, I could easily avoid getting a receipt, and that's an option here, which is really nice. So that's a good thing. But at the same time, I prefer to have a receipt rather than not, just because I like to do some tracking at the end. So after I'm done with my usage, after I'm done like with whatever I needed to do with the receipt, it would have been trashed before, but now it's turned into, a small painting, some doodle or something like that. And if it's good enough, I put it up on the wall, on my own wall or something. And like, honestly, it doesn't really affect anybody else, but I still get value out of it whenever I see like that little sketch. And I think that's worth some effort to make that art. And it's, again, like that, the time period by which I extend that receipt's lifetime is like a couple of months maybe. Or suppose you're making some art, like, it's gonna be thrown away pretty soon in terms of, how long the material lasts.
Right.
Especially if we're dealing with plastic. Like, at least receipts are paper, and paper is more or less biodegradable. But if you're dealing with plastic, you're not changing it by a lot. If it's something that breaks down over 500 to 1,000 years, keeping it with like in your house for like a year or 3 or 10 years doesn't really make a dent into the whole thing.
Yeah.
Still, if it does give you a little bit of joy.
And at some point, it's going to be beyond usable or visible. Like whatever painting you've done on it, it's going to fade away and you're going to end up throwing it in the trash anyway. What's interesting is I was watching like another video, I think one of the ones that we were talking about before, where they were talking about how in the past, like you used all the stuff that you got was in like glass bottles or was in tin cans or things like that, and there the impetus was on the company, on the corporation. So Coca-Cola was almost exclusively sold in glass bottles, and again, it was the company's job. I think it still is in some parts of India, but more and more it's being replaced by smaller plastic bottles. But earlier they basically used the glass, and it was their responsibility to collect the glass and bring it back, wash it, refill it again, and sell it, which was better for the environment, but was more work on their part. And throughout, I think the 70s and 80s, they ended up transferring that burden of quote unquote burden onto the consumers, where rather than them having to take your bottles away and washing them, refilling them, they give you plastic bottles, which again, their they're adding to the pollution, but then when you don't recycle it, it hurts your conscience rather than theirs. So they've basically changed all of that up, and it's been made sort of they have essentially ended up incentivizing us to do the hard work rather than them.
Yeah. And I guess it's also easier when you sort of distribute that responsibility over millions of people. You know, it's much less visible because you chop it down into such small fractions that each person doesn't have it weigh on their conscience.
Yeah.
But collectively, the responsibility is of, possibly entire animal species.
Yeah. And then they basically end up telling you, please recycle. And I think these days, even on plastic bottles, if you buy any, it has this thing where they will buy back plastic or whatever, and they will pay you some 10 rupees for a kilogram of plastic or something like that. But who has like a kilogram of plastic bottles anyway? Anyway, moving on to a slightly different topic because this is getting very depressing.
Too sticky.
Yeah, but sort of staying with the capitalism part of it, you mentioned the receipts, and it reminded me of this time when I was in Mumbai and I was at a KFC and I got some stuff to eat, and they said, yeah, we're trying to be environmentally conscious and we're not gonna give you like a paper receipt. And I was like, yeah, that's good. And then they asked for my phone number, and I was like, what is this going to be used for? And they said it's going to be used to give you an e-receipt. I was like, okay, good. That sounds reasonable. That sounds okay. And I specifically told them I do not want to be told of offers and all of that stuff. But of course, to this day, it has been 8 months or so, and I'm still receiving messages from companies on offers and new menu items and stuff like that.
Of course you are.
And it's extremely irritating because every time I open up my phone, I see notifications from, and not just them, like they're just one example, like all of the companies ever, they end up sending you all of these things, and it is extremely frustrating.
You have no idea how happy I am that in my region, I have no network. And I can happily just turn off my old SIM card and never have to receive messages again. Honestly, for a long time, I had a hard time saying no. Anytime I would go to like one of these places to get a burger or a sandwich or something, I would end up giving them my phone number.
Yeah.
After a point, I was so annoyed by the whole thing, but I was still bad at saying no. So I would give them the wrong phone number.
Yeah.
But soon, fortunately I sort of learned how to stand my ground.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that like you're not obligated to. I always felt obligated to tell my phone number, and it's like, well, you're not. And then one day I was just like, is it okay if we don't do this? And the cashier was kind of taken aback. Like they were like, this guy knows something. I felt like I'd cracked some kind of cheat code or something. But it was really nice. In some cases, they're really insistent. Yeah. In which case, I'm still not that good at saying no. So I just give them a fake number. I mean, it is good to receive messages from companies. On a regular basis.
Are you being paid, Mihir? Are you being paid?
I am not being paid by anyone.
That's exactly what someone who's getting paid would say.
This is not part of guerrilla marketing.
I just envisioned like a gorilla at a zoo wearing like sponsored t-shirts and stuff.
Oh my god. If a gorilla came up to you and had a casual conversation about how one of Honda's products are the best, I think that would be guerrilla marketing. Moving swiftly on. So I recently came across this article, and I have no idea. I'm gonna say this upfront. I have no clue whether it's actually true or not. It seemed very interesting, and the photo was connected with it. So it seemed like a wholesome chain of thought. And it was about this Japanese method of growing trees called daisuki. I might be saying it wrong, but it was basically they were growing lumber on like this, where they're basically growing trees for lumber,
Mm-hmm.
but they were growing it on top of a tree itself. And it was actually very interesting. The article claimed that it was eco-friendly and it was actually using less floor space, and it was efficient in those terms, because you ended up, especially I guess in Japan, they don't really have that much land area, and so it was an efficient way of growing a lot of wood.
Mm.
Also, it looks very alien.
Mm.
It reminded me almost of like things from Avatar, like James Cameron's Avatar.
Ooh.
It was very strange, but the visual is really nice, where you have like a tree, and then from like clumps of green leaves, you have entire like huge standalone trees sort of rising out of. It's quite nice. I'll send you the photo now.
What are you sending it to me on?
I'll send it on WhatsApp.
Okay, cool. I thought I would have to download Telegram.
Yeah, I think you should do it anyway. It's pretty great. It's really nice. It's got great stickers. It's got wonderful chat options and themes.
Mm-hmm.
It also doesn't store the photos onto your phone, so you don't have to like clean up your phone every couple of months for the junk you accumulate. It's all kinds of wonderful. But I'm not gonna talk about that.
Yeah, because that would be guerrilla marketing.
Okay, I can't send it on WhatsApp. Particularly because of the way I have set things up right now, my phone isn't connected to the internet.
It's okay. Can you tell me, maybe I can Google it?
Yeah, it's called Daisugi. Daisugi.
Okay. Ooh, yeah. This is interesting. It almost reminds me of like, yeah, as you said, it's like very alien looking.
Exactly.
Especially in this picture, it looks like it's like a puppet that has strings attached to it.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Or, I don't know, I feel like they're really long fingers. You have like a palm almost,
Hmm.
and then you have super long fingers coming out.
Yeah. Interesting, but is it actually the kind of tree that you would want? Because I'm guessing like you can't have the bark, like you can't have the trunk be very big.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely have some constraints there, but I mean, it seems to be sufficient for the logs.
Yeah. Looks good.
So speaking of plants, smooth segue. I've been growing some plants for no reason, because I just wanted some herbs. But one of my friends ended up buying some cilantro, which he used a lot, and there were pretty much no leaves left. And yet I kept like watering the little base which was there with like a little bit of soil, and now I'm getting fresh leaves, and it's so incredible the way like plants can grow out of seemingly nothing. Like mint, especially pudina. Like I trimmed a little bit, stuck it in the soil, literally stuck it in the soil, no efforts taken whatsoever, and it grows. To be honest, it grows frustratingly fast. Now I am slightly annoyed with my mint, to the point I have to trim it back every couple of days. It grows a lot.
That's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have, because I have a lot of mint now. But it's incredible how well they grow, and how seemingly dead material is still alive. And I don't mean like the soil is alive kind of way, but like the cilantro example, it grew out of pretty much dead leaves. And I am recently, that has been like my project for some time, and I am quite happy with it. I feel like I need to expand my collection, and soon I shall have my own jungle. Yeah, but the point is like, depending on what you're planting, where you're doing it, also amount of sunlight, like all of those things play a big role. Right now, I guess with the monsoon, there's not that much sunlight. But I am actually more interested about indoor plants rather than outdoor plants, because indoor plants have relatively less issues from what I know. Because outdoor stuff, um, you have different birds that have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
They can just eat the leaves. You have different, like a variety of insects who can sort of hack away at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whereas an indoor thing, it's really nice. You can just, put it in a corner and it survives as long as you take care of it. And I think that's much better, because you also don't have to worry too much about things like caterpillars and earthworms and all of that stuff.
Mm.
You have the occasional moth laying some eggs on one of the leaves or something like that, and you have to kind of keep an eye out. But otherwise, it's nice to have some basil in the house. Or so okay, I have a little bit of a brag,
Mm-hmm.
but I have some oregano that I recently got, which has started flowering. And I had no idea oregano had flowers, and I can put some photo in the show notes. But it it's so delicate, and it's like these tiny little purple flowers. They don't really have a very strong smell,
Mm.
but they're so cute. And I had no idea that like oregano flowered or mint flowered. Like, yeah, sorry about that tangent. The other part of it is that if you sort of do grow it, and if it's doing poorly or it's doing well, I have noticed that it affects you personally. And that's really, really interesting. It's like a plant that, that really has no sort of real effect on you. Just in the morning, when you see that it's doing well and it hasn't done well in the past couple of days, you took care of it, and now it's like, it's all happy again.
Mm.
It brightens your day. At least me, it brightens my day so much.
Mm.
I mean, I've sat in class and just grinning stupidly because I realized that, oh, hey, my plants are doing well at home. It has the most unexpected benefits. So highly recommended.
And I also think like having herbs would be quite nice, because like, especially you said mint, because I really like mint, especially with my green tea and stuff. But but the problem with green tea, with mint, is that whenever I get them, like you get them in like a big bunch, and I don't end up using all of them, so they usually just dry away. But next time I get them, I will plant them. I will hopefully have some more herbs that I can have.
I mean, literally, I just stuck it in a piece of, like, a little bit of earth, and it takes a little bit of time. Like, you need to sort of take care of it, but more or less it's fine. A thing that I tried with basil, which was also kind of interesting, was that like I grew it from a seed, but then once it had a little bit of I had like 4 leaves or so, I chopped it off and I stuck it in some water, and I like let it grow roots, and I planted it again in a different part, in a different pot. And I basically have 2 genetically identical basil plants growing in 2 different pots.
Interesting. I will give that a try.
On a completely different note, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Would you prefer frozen yogurt or ice cream?
Ice cream any day. Next.
No, you don't. It's not that superficial of a question.
Okay. I don't know. I think it's mostly just because I've grown up eating ice cream rather than frozen yogurt. I think the first time I had froyo was, I think it was that time when, like, the both of us and 2 more friends of ours, we went out for frozen yogurt late at night.
Oh yeah, right.
And I think that was the first time. And that was like when I was like 18, 19, 20, something like that. So I haven't had a lot of frozen yogurt. And there's this one place in KP where my friends and I go sometimes. And it's really good because there you get to make your own froyo. You get to make your own sundae essentially. So all the toppings and everything and all the flavors and everything.
Yeah.
But it's extremely expensive. Like especially because it's because they give you control, so you have the thing, and you're like, yeah, I can have more chocolate chips, I can have more fudge, I can have more this and that, and then it ends up being way too much. and also it ends up being very expensive. But also I think I really like the way ice cream melts and the way it tastes.
Okay.
I think it's more just familiarity because I've sort of grown up with ice cream, and also I'm not very adventurous with like
Okay.
I have a very fixed thing. Like I go to a store and I will have the darkest, deepest, sort of the most decadent chocolate ice cream that they have, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
What is your preference?
I prefer frozen yogurt.
Okay.
Recently, I have come across a particular flavor that was really tasty. I like the texture, so I am really starting to enjoy frozen yogurt. But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. For a long time, tender coconut from Naturals has been the top ice cream. So I get that.
Fun fact, I've never had that actually. I've always had their choco chip thing because they have like these big chocolate chunks that they put in it. So yeah, the place that is famous for its fruit and like seasonal ice creams, I've always had just the chocolate ones. Sometimes I'll have coffee ice cream in some places is really good.
That's not too bad. Yeah, coffee ice cream is alright.
Yeah, there's this place called Apsara Ice Cream in Pune, which has really good coffee ice cream. And there was this one place in Gokarna, I remember. I think they've shut down recently, but there's this place in Gokarna near the beach where they have like a lot of really good stuff. Like they have good pasta and all of that, but they also have homemade ice cream, and their coffee ice cream is to die for. It's incredible.
All right.
It's just my favorite flavors because I like coffee and I like chocolate. So that with ice cream is just all I can ask for.
Yeah, I think that's very Prado way of operating. You know, you walk into an ice cream store and you order the same thing every time. I mean, that's not too bad. You don't have to think too much. So hey, if it works, it works.
If it's like a situation where it's like a wedding or something, I do like the vanilla ice cream with the chocolate sauce on top. That is sometimes better than just plain chocolate ice cream.
I disagree, but vanilla ice cream is nice if you have brownies. It's arguably the best, I think, but not with chocolate sauce. Just chocolate sauce and vanilla ice cream need something more. Like gulab jamun. To be clear, that was a joke, but if any of our audience has had it, I would be interested in finding out how it is, although not enough to try it out myself.
I would say I would try it, but I'm not sure I would like it.
Yeah, I don't think I would like it either, but I have tried gulab jamun ice cream.
Okay.
It's a thing. It's not gulab jamun with ice cream, it's gulab jamun ice cream. And I have no idea where I got it from. It was some delivery thing, like it was some Fast Sauce or Eat Some or something like that. But it was really delicious, and I guess I think I had it during exam season in summer. So yeah, stress, heat, and that ice cream, I think it was just the perfect condition, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Interesting.
I recommend that. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. On a different note, or going back to the main topic, would you classify Aamrakhand as frozen yogurt?
No, because I wouldn't classify Shrikhanda as yogurt.
Okay, but
also Aamrakhand isn't frozen either. It's like semi-solid.
Yeah, but isn't it somewhere in that sort of same zone? Like I would think as competition to frozen yogurt and ice cream.
Yeah, I know what you're getting at, and it's close in terms of consistency, but Shrikhanda is essentially like a form of cheese and not really yogurt. So Aamrakhand is a derivative of Shrikhanda.
It's all milk.
Yes, but no. So Aamrakhand is not frozen yogurt.
Okay, I only bring it out because it's fruity, it's slightly sour, and it's sort of served cold. It's like a cold dessert thing. Anyway, I really like Aamrakhand.
It's like asking a question if Mastani is a milkshake.
It is. It is milkshake with ice cream.
It's not. Oh, it's not. Okay, all right. Agree to disagree. I vehemently disagree.
It's Mastani is essentially like a really it's like the soft serve mixture. Like it's like molten soft serve, which is essentially milkshake with a little bit of ice cream on top. That's it.
Prado, it's not milkshake.
Okay, do you want to bring in Cadby again?
Okay, so we're doing this.
Is Cadby milkshake? Is it Mastani? Is it something else?
Nope, I would say it's a standalone category of sludge, basically chocolate sludge.
Yeah, it's essentially chocolate, like soft serve with like a slightly different process.
Once again, different process, I think, classifies it as a different thing.
Okay. So are you saying that cheese and paneer is different?
Ooh, splitting hairs a little now. Because I would say paneer is still a form of cheese. So no, paneer and cheese are not.
But the process is different.
No, I mean, okay, hold on. Cheese is a huge umbrella under which you have many different types of cheeses, from like hard to soft.
But they have different processes, is my point. So you can just, if cheese is that umbrella term, give me the umbrella term for ice cream and milkshake. That's all I want. Cold beverage and cold cold dessert.
Okay, hold on. Ice cream and milkshake, I think, are pretty close. If you're adding frozen yogurt into the mix, it's, I would say, still in the same ballpark. Shrikhanda turns it into, like, I think a different category. Like, I think the overarching term there would be desserts. Shrikhanda is not close enough to any of them. Cadby.
Agree to disagree. Because I will gladly have just a small bowl of Aamrakhand over frozen yogurt.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Like, sure, Aamrakhand is nice. It's great. There's nothing wrong with it. It's also not yogurt or frozen yogurt.
Okay. So I'm gonna go out to the shops tomorrow and get like a huge bunch of stuff.
I mean, Shrikhanda isn't very hard to make at home, right?
But you still have to get the ingredients.
Of course. Can you get them right now? You can, right? It's not too restrictive. Okay.
Everything's open. Is basically back to normal. As much as that is an issue, everything is basically back to normal. Yeah. Everybody's out and about. People have basically forgotten mask etiquette. People have forgotten that anything has ever happened. They're out in big groups. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on to other things.
Yeah, it's been raining here as well, and I guess since July. So July and August have actually felt very much like July and August that I'm used to. You know, it just rains like anything. And that inevitably leads me to watch The Garden of Words every monsoon season. At one point or another, I feel like, you know, there's only so much time I can sort of resist that temptation. So I finally broke down and I watched it the other day. It's still very beautiful. It's still very enjoyable. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah. It's interesting how, like, there are a lot of things, and like we can get into we can talk about this for like ages, but there are so many similarities in the films of Makoto Shinkai, not just in like the protagonists and the sort of themes and ideas, but also the fact these natural elements, like in Garden of Words, the rain is just, I mean, the center of it.
Yep.
Basically the same thing with Weathering with You as well, with Tenkinoko.
Yeah.
You have the rain being part of it, like it's called Weathering with You. And even in 5 centimeters per second, one of the 2-3 stories is basically about snow, and you see the snow, you see the rain, you see the all the forms of precipitation, and sort of you see that playing such a big part of everything. It's incredible. It's lovely.
Yeah, I think like having natural elements within the story, almost even I would say central to the story, plays a huge role, and I really like that. Like, I mean, I can point out examples in like even Ruskin Bond stories, you know, where even though the story is probably not about rain, just stories based in Dehradun and like in the foothills, it's like those natural elements really make it enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I guess like I guess at least in India we have enough rain to sort of, to have a lot of music and stories about it,
Hmm.
although maybe not so much in the mainstream media
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
But still, yeah, I'm really happy about that. But Garden of Words, I was actually able to point out a couple of like tiny shots of the rain where I was like, oh, okay, this is where he drew inspiration, and he like I could connect it to the movie Weathering with You.
Hmm.
Also, I love that lightning scene. How good is that lightning? There's just one shot. Oh my god. How good is that lightning?
Yeah, it makes everything so much more like it's just atmospheric. The entire thing, it just makes you feel like you're in there.
I mean, the other day I literally woke up to like rainfall on the roof, and the first thought that entered my head was like, I need to watch Garden of Words.
Hmm.
And it's so worth it. It is. All right, I'm going to stop talking about it because it's just going to just increase your pain, I guess.
Yeah. So speaking about Japan, and you were talking about how like they have limited land and everything. So I don't know if you remember, I told you about this documentary earlier, like a while back, called The Final Years of Majuro, which is
Yeah.
so that's like the documentary that was on like a different service, but now it's also on YouTube. So I really recommend that you watch it, because I did not know so much about the Marshall Islands, and I do not know sort of the urgency of the issue for them.
Yeah.
And like again, like about the effects of climate change and everything, but it's very difficult. Like it just sort of emphasizes the issue when you see it happen.
Yeah.
Because they are such small islands. They're basically atolls, not even islands.
Yeah.
And they like water, like the elevation from sea level is basically next to nothing. So it's really like it's almost like living in constant fear that something big can happen. And like imagine like an entire country just wiped out of the map, not conquered by someone else, not sort of attacked by anyone else, just engulfed by the sea.
Yeah.
And you would have hundreds of thousands of people who would have to sort of find a way out. And it seems like, again, because of the current situation, because we are sort of dealing with problems that we never really planned for, or we never really expected to happen.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the worst case scenario just happening. And this seems like one of the other issues. And like the Marshall Islands is one example. There's a lot of other island nations. Japan is another example. All like basically all of the human civilization is sort of based around water bodies.
Yeah.
So it's like a really big problem. But it's just it's sad, because it's like a really big issue that's gonna really come to the head in the next decade or two, but it is just being completely sort of glossed over because we have other situations at hand. And this is not just from like now, from 2020, but before as well. We just sweep things under the rug and hope that something happens, like miracles happen in the future and we get out of it. But miracles are just too good to be true. So
yeah, especially on such a large scale. Like small scale miracles, I think definitely do happen. Like, and by that I mean like coincidences that are favorable.
Yeah.
But I think on such a large scale, especially when you come up against something that we have been sort of actively hacking away at for close to 2 centuries now, is, well, again, there's a slightly different argument where, if you do you want to stretch it back to the agricultural revolution or not. But yeah. I mean, I'll take that as homework. Speaking of homework, I'm still on it. Give me more time.
Yeah.
uh, but the other thing is, I have some homework for you as well.
Okay.
There's a really nice documentary on YouTube once again about AlphaGo.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it,
I haven't.
but if you haven't, I definitely recommend it. It's about the AI that they developed to play the game Go.
Yeah. It's the Google algorithm or something, right?
Yeah, so it was 2017, I think. But the documentary they've done in like real time, where they develop real time as in the days when the game happened between this AI and the best Go player in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 5 games, and they explain the process pretty well. They also give you enough insight into what Go is to have an idea of what's happening. But for me, the most interesting part was just watching the human reactions to different moves. Suppose that the Go made, AlphaGo made, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and just different commentators and scientists and even Go players themselves like reacting in ways that was really nice. So I'll recommend that. But coming back to the thing about Marshall Islands and the whole sort of climate change thing, yeah, I really like the way John Green puts it. He calls it eschatological anxiety.
Hmm.
Uh, it's I think it's a really nice way of saying it, because it encompasses so many things in just like 2 neat little words. And I have had that for some time now. For me, one of the biggest reasons has been this glacier in Antarctica.
Yeah.
And I know that of all things to be worried about is like some remote glacier, but when you sort of think about it, uh, so I don't want to get too much into it, but it's basically something. It's the size of Florida, and it is pretty much on like a on a very it's on very thin ice, and it's about to sort of break away. And basically warming waters are sort of eroding the base that it's on, and if that glacier sort of breaks off, it will pretty much, I think, raise water levels by 3 meters
Hmm.
across the globe. And like, it's not just like a climate change, like a slow burn kind of effect. If this thing happens,
Hmm.
it's such a quick impact all across the globe, and there is literally nothing we can do. Like, the
Right.
scientists who are currently studying it, they're taking like samples of the glacier throughout the depth, and they're sort of measuring the rate that it's degrading at. But at the same time, we haven't had enough time. We found out about it quite recently,
Hmm.
so we don't know enough about it, but we know enough to understand that it could just be like a linchpin to sort of create these whole chain of events. I'm actually curious to see if like the Marshall Island documentaries connects not to this particularly,
Hmm.
but just uh, Antarctica melting.
They were talking a lot about just sea level rise, and I think they put the deadline as 2030. They were basically saying that by 2030
Yeah,
it'll be completely unlivable.
yeah,
And it's not just because of like their homes being completely flooded, but it's also that whatever farmlands they have, whatever gardens they have,
yeah.
the water comes in and like basically salinates their entire farmland, so it's ruining everything. But
Oh,
anyway, it's really serious.
yeah,
And they did some, like, there's some hopeful stuff in there as well. Like, they managed to bring a lot of like these small island nations together together in the United Nations and bring it up as a big topic of discussion. And I hope that we continue to sort of bring up issues that we see as being far-fetched or something to be sort of just push it along till it reaches breaking point. But
yeah,
let's hope that something happens. Maybe we can sort of catch something before it's way too late. And I say that with a very hopeful tone, hoping that we haven't really crossed the event horizon.
Yeah.
But that's a dark thought.
I hope so as well, but I feel like we've sort of reached a point as like hope is for suckers, and we need to sort of start looking at stuff. If there's something we can do,
Yeah. Oh, that's all I can think of, honestly. Because I was watching this video again. I might have told you earlier also. There's this guy called Curtis Bouty who's like an environmental scientist or something like that, and he made a video about how how you have the carbon footprint idea essentially, and how even that entire idea is flawed, because like you can like reduce your carbon footprint, like the things we mentioned, no, like recycling and all the other solutions and everything, but all of that reduces the carbon footprint by a little bit, whereas companies have these massive impacts on the environment, which is, I mean, just on a completely different scale to individual levels. So it's it's a very sad thought, but these are sort of difficult times.
we're just two rays of sunshine today. Just go out, have a nice ice cream or frozen yogurt or shrikhand or whatever pleases you, and enjoy. Well, that's a happy note to end on.